Apologies to everybody. I had a meeting with IMD that went long, and I would like to be in the room, but I'm not. With that said, let's go ahead and get started with our February 11th meeting of the Technical Coordinating Committee of the French Broad River MPO. My name is William High, and let's go ahead and get started. Because I can't see folks in the room, is it Asha or Hannah? Who's doing roll and roll call?
Hannah today.
Hannah, thank you, Hannah. Hannah, would you mind to tell you what? Let's start with the folks in the room. If y'all want to go around and introduce yourselves, including any guests, and then otherwise, Hannah. After that, Hannah, would you please do the roll call?
Yes. Steve, do you want to start?
Sure. Steve Williams, NCDOT Division 14.
Thomas Smith, DOT Division 13.
Doug Phillips, DOT Division 13.
Sarah Tolman, NCDOT Division 13 training program.
Brendan Merrithew, Division 13.
Devin Sparks, TPD and Division 13.
Tristan Winkler, French Broad River MPO.
Hannah Bagley, French Broad River MPO.
Katie O'Connor, French Broad River MPO.
Katie Broadwell, Agricultural Council.
Noah Taylor, Town of Maggie.
Elizabeth Teague, Town of Waynesville.
Olin Dalehousen, Pond and Company.
Great.
The roll call. Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Here. Good morning.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Here.
Biltmore Forest, Terry Buckner.
Here.
Buncombe County, William High.
Present.
Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Here.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Here.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Good morning.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Biancouli.
Morning.
Hendersonville, Matt Manley.
Present.
Maggie Valley, Noah Taylor. Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Here.
Mills River, Mike Malachek.
Here.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Good morning, folks.
Waynesville, Elizabeth Teague.
I'm here. That might be Alex Lumby.
Weaverville, James Eller.
Present.
Woodson, Ricky Hurley.
Here.
And DOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Here.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Here.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that, Hannah. Do we have any public comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we are looking for an approval of the agenda, a consent agenda, barring any discussion or question or amendment.
Just to note, we did add one item. We got a request late yesterday to add a letter of support for an application to the U.S. DOT build program from the city of Asheville. They are planning on submitting for a planning project for a Hilliard Avenue corridor feasibility study.
Okay.
I move that we approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Steve. We have a motion in front of us. Hannah, would you please help us out?
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Terry Buckner.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approve.
Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Biancouli.
Aye.
Hendersonville, Matt Manley. Maggie Valley, Noah Taylor.
Aye.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
Mills River, Mike Malachek.
Approve.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
Jamesville, Elizabeth Teague. Approved. Weaverville, James Eller.
Approved.
Woodson, Ricky Hurley.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
Yeah, I have it.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, well, with that, let's kick it off to our first business item, 5310 project selection.
Take it away, David.
Okay, give me just 1 second to get it pulled up here. All right, just a quick review of the timeline for 5310 and JARC selection. The call for projects opened up on October 16th. Applications were due to the MPO by January 15th. On February 4th, the prioritization subcommittee met to make recommendations on the applications. Today, the TCC will make recommendations to the MPO board, and next week on February 19th, the MPO board will vote to approve the project selection. And then on March 19th, this will come back before the MPO board in the form of TIP amendments to approve the projects, the requisite projects that are being added to the TIP. Give me just 1 second to adjust my screen here. Overall, 5310 is intended to operate a public or to provide funding to assist in operating a public transportation service to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. This year, we received $486,152 in 5310 funds. 10% of that is set aside in admin fees, so that comes to $48,615, leaving the remaining Section 5310 funding at $437,537. We're required to fund 55%, or 55% of the funding is required to go toward what is viewed as traditional projects, so that leaves us with a total of $267,384 going toward traditional projects. And then 35% of the funds can go toward other projects, and that total is $170,153. This year we received 4 applications for 5310 funding. Those applications were Hendersonville pedestrian signals, and that was to build accessible paths to bus stops through the use of accessible pedestrian signals. Buncombe County SEDTAP to provide public transit trips to older adults and people with disabilities that live outside the city of Asheville's 88 paratransit zones. Buncombe County RIDE, curb-to-curb user-side subsidy, allowing participants to purchase taxi vouchers at a subsidized rate. And then an application from Council on Aging, Buncombe County, to provide door-to-door transportation services for seniors unable to drive or access public transport. So we're here today to select a funding scenario for these projects. The amount of applications that we received is more than the total funding available, which requires us to select a funding scenario, prioritizing which applications we want to fund. We're here to present 3 funding scenarios for you today. The first funding scenario is simply funding all projects at a rate of requested funds over the funds available, so taking the total amount of project funding request and coming up with a percentage that we could fund if we were to fund everything, and that percentage comes to, we are able to fund 82% of the applications. And that would leave us with $134,457 for the Henderson pedestrian signals, $219,864 for Buncombe County SEDTAP, $54,146 for Buncombe County RIDE, and $29,007 for Council on Aging in Buncombe County. Under scenario 2, we looked at selecting projects based solely on points awarded to the application. The highest scoring projects would be funded first until funding is diminished, and then the residual funding would be awarded to the highest scoring projects for which funding is available. And then under scenario 3, we came up with prorating the points, prorating the application by points. So the projects were awarded based on the percentage of funding available multiplied by the amount of points each application received. After conferring with the prioritization subcommittee, both staff and the prioritization subcommittee recommend going with scenario 1, which is all projects are funded at a ratio of requested funds over funds available. And with that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions.
Two items from me. One, in the past, I'm fully in support of scenario 1. Let me say that from the get-go. And I have no problems with what's put here. We have in the past been, we've advised ourselves in the past to not base things off of a percentage, for fear that I come in and ask for $1 million and everyone gets, whatever. So just to keep that in mind for the future. But then I just had a question for Hendersonville. Have you already identified where these pedestrian signals will go? Just curious.
Is that a question for related to the Hendersonville project?
Yeah, I'm just curious where
so it's in and
things are
around
gonna go.
our downtown. I don't know how familiar you are, but we have Highway 25 is one direction, King Street, and then opposite direction, Church Street, and then we also have US 64, which intersects with 25, just at the north end of town. And so those, carry a lot of traffic right in a very walkable part of our city, in the core of our city. And so one of the issues we have is that Main Street, while it's award-winning and beautiful, is somewhat of an island because of the traffic patterns of these major arterials around the outskirts of downtown. And so creating walkable, safe connections for all users is a high priority. And so this would help with that.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments, or would anyone like to make a motion one way or another? The recommended scenario is number 1 from staff.
This is Elizabeth. I'll make a motion to approve scenario 1 as recommended by staff and the subcommittee.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Do we have a second?
This is Lucy. I'll second.
I heard Lucy first. Thank you very much, Lucy.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Terry Buckner.
Approve.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Transit, Janet Bianculli.
Aye.
Hendersonville, Matt Manley.
Aye.
Miami Valley, Noah Taylor.
Aye.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
Mills River, Mike Malachek.
Approve.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
Waynesville, Elizabeth Teague. Approved. Weaverville, James Eller.
Approve.
Woodston, Ricky Hurley.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Approved.
The ayes have it.
Thank you very much, everybody. And with that, we will take it to our JARC conversation.
All right, and just as a refresher, the JARC grant program is intended to fund development and maintenance of transportation services designed to transport welfare recipients and eligible low-income individuals to and from jobs and activities related to their employment. Per our sub-allocation formula, JARC is an elective program for which 20% of funds are set aside from the region's allotment to fund the program. And this year, the allotment, or the portion of the allotment dedicated to JARC is $420,732. And we had one application from the city of Asheville to fund its routes 170, S3, and S6. So with that, I can entertain any questions.
Okay. If there are no comments or questions for Daisy, would anyone like to make a motion for approval of item 4B?
I'll make a motion to approve item 4B.
Thank you, Steve.
This is Elizabeth, I'll second.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, Hannah, would you take us around?
Asheville, Lucy Crum.
Aye.
Bart, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Fillmore Forest, Terry Buckner.
Approve.
Welcome County, William Hyde.
Approve.
Welcome Transit, Chloe Donahoe.
Approve.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Aye.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Aye.
Apple Country Transit, Janet Biancouli.
Aye.
Hendersonville, Matt Manley.
Right.
Maggie Valley, Noah Taylor. Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
Mills River, Mike Malachek.
Approve.
RPO, Vicki Eastland.
Aye.
Greenville, Elizabeth Teague.
Approved.
Weaverville, James Eller.
Approved.
Woodson, Ricky Hurley.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Doug Phillips.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
Yeah, I have it.
Thank you very much, everybody. All right, so for our last voting item, something rather novel, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about, our regional travel survey.
Okay, so our regional travel survey is something that is currently programmed in our Unified Planning Work Program with CRISA funds. Those are coronavirus rapid relief supplementary something funds that came from the federal government. Those funds are available with 0% match. We programmed $700,000 of those funds to doing a regional travel survey update. So just to note, what is a regional travel survey? That is a survey done of residents as well as visitors throughout our region to help get a better understanding of travel patterns and travel behavior in our region. That feeds directly into the region's travel demand model, which is what NCDOT uses as a basis for traffic forecasts and helping to determine, how a potential future roadway would operate. So it's something that plays a very important role in our travel demand model. It was last updated in 2013, so it has been a while. And we know that especially for our region, there have been a number of shifts even before the pandemic and especially after the pandemic, that getting those patterns and behaviors documented and into our travel demand model is the reason we programmed this some time ago. So we are getting ready to release the RFP, not the RFLOI, RFP. And we are looking for a minimum of 2 volunteers from the TCC. We'll take 2. We would love 3 to help us go through RFPs and help select the consulting groups that would be leading the regional travel survey and checking in on the study as it goes through. So looking for volunteers today.
Hey, Tristan.
I was interested until you said review RFPs, so.
I thought that would hook people in.
Oh.
Hey, Tristan, it's Vicky. Is my status
You're on,
volunteer,
Vicky.
or am I voluntold?
You're voluntold.
All right,
How
then I
long are
won't
we talking
volunteer.
about?
So, all in all, the survey is expected to take at least 18 months, but we would not anticipate regular check-ins like other committees. So I think with this, it's more, we make sure that the consultant is aware of what we want and some of the specific tasks for our region. So like in the RFP scope, we have put in some specific language related to visitors, as well as recreational and traveling by non-vehicular modes. But after that, we anticipate a fairly long period where they would be surveying the public before we would have information to review.
And are you anticipating, aside from yourself and representative of the RPO, will there be people from the board on this? I wouldn't think so, but just check.
No, at this point, we are just thinking TCC members would be good to have representation there. We do anticipate having updates to the TCC board as the survey goes on.
Any volunteers?
This is Jody Ferguson. I have one additional question. Once this is completed, how would we use this data moving forward, these reports?
Sure. I mean, Daniel, step in if I misspeak, but really the primary function is to inform the travel demand model for the region. So looking at future travel forecasts, the survey would help inform the model people's general travel patterns, how they are moving about the region, where are they going, how many trips per day are they making, how are they making those trips, what time of day, etc. We know our region has a number of quirks, including that we don't have much of a morning rush hour. But the primary function would be reflecting that information into the model so that DOT travel and traffic forecasts would be considered more accurate. But also I think it would just be an educational effort for us to better understand those patterns.
Last question. How do we think the status of I-40 in the Pigeon River Gorge might affect this study during this time? And would there be a way to try to incorporate what it should be like if the road were whole and complete?
That's a great question. I'll actually, Daniel, do you have any input on that one?
Yeah, I'm trying to think it through. I know, I mean, it would be nice if we could hold the survey until I-40 reopened fully, but that's not expected for a while. Right now, we anticipate the survey being conducted in the fall. Was they do like to do it kind of during normal travel behavior, so school in session and things like that. And then it'll take them a few months to crunch all the data and get it back to us. Or we could do it next spring. That was also a possibility. But I don't think 40 is opening before either of those time blocks. Now it is a household survey, so it would be surveying people who live in Haywood County. So we're not going to necessarily capture the people living in Tennessee commuting in through the region with the normal travel survey. We have a few vectors that we're trying to capture more tourism, more out of region, but the bulk of the survey is for residents of the region.
I'm just wondering how truck traffic would be represented in there and how many, semi drivers are taking an alternate route and whether this would demonstrate, just how much truck traffic moves through Haywood County in a normal condition.
Well, I'll say that this survey doesn't have any truck data collection programmed into it. It doesn't say so in the agenda, but this is a household survey. So this is surveying normal people on their travel behavior and having them keep a travel log. So we know what time of day they're leaving, what type of trips they're chaining together versus making separate, who's riding with them. Truck traffic, we rely on putting mechanical counters out on the road or using something similar like cameras to visually numerically count how many trucks are coming into the region on different roads. And so that's a different data collection effort. Usually that's just run through the traffic surveys group. Or we rely on standardized trip generation numbers based on the types of businesses in the region. So we know warehousing facilities produce different number of truck trips than, say, restaurants. And we don't survey businesses directly on those on their truck utilizations.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right. So who wants to volunteer?
When does this start? Like, when would the kickoff be?
We anticipate getting RFPs back in April and having the kickoff happen most likely sometime in June after selection and getting OIG approval from NCDOT.
Will there be, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
Well, Jan, I was wondering, in the survey, you're doing households, so it would include commuters in single occupied vehicles, but it would also include transit riders, right?
Correct.
And so, Daniel, do you foresee the survey identifying those areas of need in the region? In other words, is it going to be able to tell a transit provider there's areas here that you have potential customers? Can it be used for identifying future JARC applications or route adjustments or anything like that? How do you foresee the data being used in a way that helps some of our committee members?
Right. So when we ask people how they make their trips, either they're going shopping, school, work, etc., we will obviously capture if they choose to make that trip by transit. We have kind of a standard battery of tests that we ask, and to kind of generate the valid answers we want. But we also have room to ask some extra questions. And in the RFP, we have discussed how to capture what you're asking, which is not so much, are you a potential transit rider, but, why did you choose to make your trip this way? Did you consider all other alternatives? And kind of looking for that latent demand, what was the hurdle for you not choosing transit? Why did you choose to drive alone? And we'll have to explore that as we work with the consultant to design the survey. So if you're interested, you may want to be volunteer. But
I think
the first order of business for the survey is to collect the truth on the ground as it is, and then we'll of course try to add what extra we can to it to extrapolate, extract, other insightful information.
Yeah, I think in general it helps identify what kind of trips are being made by transit and what kind of users are using transit in the region, and that can, be a first step along with other things to help identify places that might have success.
Yeah, and right now in the RFP, we have a line about targeted geographies, and at first we were thinking Title VI and EJ areas, but you could also talk about other interested areas like the perimeter of your transit systems or other types of infill developments, and we're thinking about those things, but we could always use guidance to make sure we allocate the we think with the budget we have, we will be able to collect around 3,000 household surveys, and how we allocate and where we target those 3,000, we have some flexibility in, and that's where we can make some choices.
All right. One last time. Do we have any volunteers to assist in this effort?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Lucy.
Who said that?
Lucy Crown with the City of Asheville.
Thank you, Lucy. I will also volunteer. Do we have a third? All right. Well, we'll demand one of you do it later then. Okay. Well, that gives you two. All right. Well,
Thank you.
I was hoping it was Steve, saying, sure, sign me up.
No one wants a DOT person on a committee.
All right. So, okay, moving on to informational items. Bike Ped Committee. By the way, I'd like to compliment staff for their very poor timing of the three business items that we sailed through. Item A and B, and item C took up the bulk. But anyway, go on. Bike Ped Committee.
We thought of the volunteers would be begging to join.
Oh yeah, extra work. Everybody loved that. Very true.
All right, so Bike Ped Advisory Committee. So first, a little bit of history on where this came from, and just to note, this is informational for today. Over a year ago, we discussed dissolving the Citizens Advisory Committee at the MPO. That was approved by the Citizens Advisory Committee as well as the TCC. When it got to the board, they requested that we not dissolve that committee, with one of the key points being cited that it would essentially end direct public engagement at the MPO, or direct public involvement. And so we went back through over the course of last year. We talked with the Citizens Advisory Committee. They again requested to be dissolved. They gave two suggestions about their dissolution and how to remedy the board's request. One of them was adding at-large positions to the prioritization subcommittee. That was rejected by the subcommittee as well as in other discussions. The other consideration was forming a biped advisory committee for the region. When the Citizens Advisory Committee was formally dissolved at our October 25 meeting, there was a request that we come back with the biped advisory committee consideration. So in general, staff has sketched up some ideas on this. It would replace our Health Under Regional Trail Work Group and serve as kind of a broader function for that. Some potential work tasks include providing complete streets recommendations on prioritization and other long-range projects, help identify safety needs and hotspots, provide input on regional plans, community engagement, support, and highlighting emerging issues in the biped realm. Just to note, our kind of somewhat current committee and work group looks like this. We have, under the TCC, the Prioritization Subcommittee, RIP, the Citizens Advisory Committee, the 5307 Subrecipients Work Group, and the Health Under Work Group. Technically, under prioritization is a local projects work group that is currently working on making recommendations on streamlining the local projects process. So adding the biped advisory committee, we would see that, again, consolidating the Health Under Regional Trail task and changing our structure to look like this. Something we've noted looking at other MPOs and what committees they have, a biped committee is one of the more common ones at MPOs across the state. CAMPO, which is Raleigh, has a biped committee. WINPO, Wilmington, MPO has one. CERTPO, or Charlotte, WAMPO, which is Greenfield, and FAMPO, which is Fayetteville, all have biped committees. It is one of the more common committees. We drafted some bylaws, nothing set in stone, but just looking at what this could look like, we are thinking 9 to 15 members of the public appointed by the board and TCC, a minimum of 1 representative per county to maintain some level of geographic equity. Again, this would be providing recommendations to the board and TCC on biped related matters. So the advisory committee, if that's a key word there, and providing a regional forum for biped stakeholders. We are bringing this idea for feedback today, and based on TCC and board feedback, we can either bring this back for action next month or however folks see fit.
Do you anticipate this being, folks on the TCC and board, or a wholly separate group of people?
I mean, as currently written, we would see it as a separate group of people, but members of the TCC and board would certainly be welcome to sit in on meetings.
Jenna, you have your hand raised.
I don't love this idea. I feel like when we talked about dissolving the other committee, the TCC did not recommend an alternative. I feel like the folks who would make sense on this group are already involved in many MPO committees, as well as our local, municipal committees. And those are the folks that would make sense on here. So I feel like they already give input through those other mechanisms. And if it weren't those types of people, if they weren't, Blue Ridge Bicycle Club, Asheville on Bikes, Connect Buncombe, those regular groups who are represented, then I don't see much value in what's potentially being recommended from this group. Not to say that the public doesn't have valuable things to say, it's just that I would think it would need to be from those groups who are already committed to so many committees. And so I would propose that we do not give a recommendation to the MPO board for this committee.
Well, to be clear, this is not a voting item. This is purely informational. We're just chatting.
Okay,
But,
well then that's just my opinion.
yeah, no, just making sure. Just for everyone's clarification. Jessica, I saw you turn your camera on, which made me think you had something to say. No?
It's been on.
Oh, sorry. I guess it's just the movement of people's names. Never mind.
Yeah.
William, I have a comment. This is Elizabeth.
Please.
We really do need some form of direct citizen involvement, outside of elected officials and technical people. We sit in these meetings and there's always on the agenda public comment, and we hardly ever get public comment. Just a little background, prior to the 2000 census, the MPO was housed in the city of Asheville, and it was the Asheville Regional MPO, and it encompassed just Asheville, Buncombe County, and then parts of surrounding counties, based on the urbanizing area. And we had a bike and pedestrian task force, and it was a very effective group. It seemed to draw a lot of advocates. A lot of the groups that Jana mentioned were represented in it. And out of that group came Strive Not to Drive Day events. They would weigh in and actually write letters of support for things like greenway applications. They helped with the original Henderson County Greenway Master Plan and the Buncombe County, the earlier version of the Buncombe County Greenway Master Plan. Those of you who may know or remember Claudia Nix, she was, I think, the chair for many years of that original committee. So I know people are stretched thin, but I do think a committee like that where citizens who aren't affiliated with government, but may be affiliated with other groups or just maybe activists, need a way to participate. And it often feels like bicycle and pedestrian mobility, covering sidewalks and greenways and the Hellbender plan seems to activate a certain sort of citizen who wants to somehow influence transportation decisions, and they're not at the table always, unless without great effort. We did try to sustain the Citizen Advisory Committee for many years, and I give a lot of props to the current MPO staff with really trying to work with a group of citizens, but they just didn't feel like they could get much done. And so with the Citizen Advisory Committee that has a focus on bicycle and pedestrian transportation, I think you might draw in some more citizens. And I think if you recall, a lot of the people that were on the Citizens Advisory Committee were mobilized because they were concerned about sidewalks on different roads. So I could see it being a positive thing. I think it could be a nice way to keep the Hellbender regional trail planning as well as local trail planning in the conversation in a more active way. So I think I would support it. It'd be more work on staff.
I mean, a couple of things just to point out is to piggyback on some of the things you said, we did have a complete streets committee at the MPO until 2018, when it was requested to be dissolved by a number of TCC members. And so we did previously have this committee. It did generate a lot of support. I will say geographic equity was one of the concerns that was brought up about the composition of the committee. I mean, the other thing just to note is, yeah, I mean, it's, in general, the number of committees we have has still gone down. I think when I started here, we had 7 active committees, which was far too much considering we had a staff of 2 at the time. So in general, we're still well below our peak. Matt, you've had your hand raised for some time.
Did you say me?
Matt.
Oh.
Yeah, to Jana's point, I just would, before forming an opinion, how is it envisioned that this would be different than those other existing organizations throughout the region?
Sure. I think for this, it would have more of a focus on being a forum for various regional organizations to get together. I spoke to some people at the WINPO MPO. That is one of the things they noted has kind of become a general theme with their meetings. It's kind of the exchange of information between regional groups. And the other thing would be having some MPO-specific tasks. To note, we do have cross-sections that move forward into prioritization and other processes. And we do have a lot of discussion on things like bike-ped prioritization methodologies and other similar items that a bike-ped advisory committee could provide input on.
Jessica.
So I remember having this conversation, like Jana said, and I also wasn't supportive of it. Because, we do have a bike, although we have some of our things on pause because of Helene, which, we're still heavily focused on recovery, and we have a multimodal commission, we have an active transportation committee, and I think our thing is that we don't want to have another group that is heavily city focused, heavily city represented group of people that are just another group that are really focused only on city projects. So I think the only way that I would be supportive of it if it's limited to one city person, city resident, I don't want another city group that's involved in city projects that's dominated by city representatives. So, yeah, I think that we have a lot of that already. We don't need another one. And, we want to get bike ped projects done just like anybody else. So that if it was like a group that was truly representative of the region and they're talking about bike ped projects in every other county just as much as they're talking about them in Buncombe County and the city of Asheville, that's fine. But and if they're not really getting into like the design of projects, that's great. We just can't afford to be further distracted by another group right now.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other thoughts? I'll just briefly mention that I can see the value and the potential hazard here. I will say we don't. ET's right that nobody uses the public comment period at these very often anyway. I think the last one I remember it maybe in December, November had nothing to do with this committee, which was sort of amusing. Um, however, I can see the value in us providing a regular forum for those very same groups that we've talked about to inform the MPOs specifically. Um, but I hear y'all who are less in favor of this. Um, so anyway, anyone else?
This is Sandy. I'll just say that I think, the MPO's focus is regional and getting together regional advocates, and getting people in Asheville to think about what will help cyclists in Haywood County and in Madison County and these other areas, I think, is super valuable. And I think, Asheville, like Jessica said, has plenty of opportunities for advocates to get involved, but I think having a regional forum for all of these different groups, including, Bike Walk HBL and the Haywood Greenways Council, to provide input on a regional basis would be super valuable.
Yeah, and one thing to note in conversation was someone noted that there's a number of towns in our region that have interested citizens, but there's not really enough momentum within some of those smaller communities for them to form their own groups. And they felt that this could be a function. Janet?
I mean, they'll give input that most of us will know because we have our own committees. Like just kind of remembering that of these folks, the ones who are the knowledgeable ones in the bike ped realm, are already invited to the table just at a local level. But if it's done at the MPO level, are you expecting them to give input on spot prioritization? Or because it's not like there's money that these folks can then recommend how we spend certain money. It would still be directing the individual local government. And to like Jessica's point, it might just be tell the city of Asheville what to do on a city street versus from like a regional point of view. Like, I don't know if it would change anything that we're already doing. Because again, we're already getting the input from these important groups, and implementing the best we can. And the problem is there's no money.
I mean, we don't have, as has been pointed out, we don't currently have a open citizens advisory group in any capacity right now, which is unfortunate that we couldn't keep our existing one. I mean, so right.
If the MPO wants to have a committee, then good for y'all. But that doesn't sound so fun.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
That's kind of what it sounded like you said, William. No offense.
No, what I mean by that is like we're not providing currently an opportunity for people to engage on a deeper, more thoughtful level than our public comment period at the beginning and ending of this meeting, as well as the board meeting. But to be, a regular part of an ongoing conversation. And I mean that in terms of looking at what other NPOs are doing in terms of having regular citizen engagement to guide them through this process. We all do answer to our individual constituencies. However, I can see some value here. And it's not asking me to be on this committee. I would just be listening to them at the TCC, right? So, like, I'm okay with that for us to have a designated group, to have whatever citizen, to have, what is it, close the gap and Asheville and Bikes and things to talk to those folks and to have a more formal conduit for that conversation to rise up to the TCC and the board. But that's my thought. I'm not going to these. I already volunteered to do a travel survey. I'm not adding another committee, So, all right. Jenna, your hand is still raised. I just want to make sure you don't have further thoughts.
Autumn has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Autumn. Excuse me. I just saw Henderson County. That's all I see. Go ahead.
It's okay. One thing I was going to recommend is if you do decide to go forward with this, I think you need to really spell out kind of some bylaws or just purpose of this committee. So if there's some specific groups you want to serve on it, I think you need to have that and have some reps if you want it from some of those very specific groups that already exist. And just spell out what's their purpose, what's their involvement, who do they report to. So it's very clear, especially if you have some at-large members that's going to be on here. Because I know how this is with some committees, they get on there and they see the title of the committee and they think they have some power and they have some ability. And I think it just needs to be spelled out up front to reference them back of exactly what their purpose is. So I'd really like to see something like that. If you move forward.
Great.
All right.
I was curious about who would staff it.
It would be staffed by FBRMPO staff.
Could it fold into some of the TDM stuff?
Absolutely.
Could it help Sandy in your work? Could it be also sort of your committee as well?
Oh, I'm definitely going to be there pushing all of my stuff all the time.
I plan on leaning on Sandy quite a bit.
Yeah, it does seem like Bike and Ted dovetails with a lot of different things, right? Everybody's right. It's often hyper locally focused, and there are already active groups working at a local level. But I would see this looking at some of those kind of larger regional issues. We do have this Hellbender plan and an idea. We have discussion about transit demand management and park and rides and how people connect with bikes and peds and sidewalks and transit. I'd be curious, when we talk about this household survey, if there are people that are walking to bus stops, if there are people that are taking their bike. And I also feel like we just don't have a good vehicle for general public involvement in the MPO. Outside of all the regular meetings that we do, even though we offer it, I know y'all, it's not that we've shut the public out, it's just that the public doesn't come. And I do think that bicycle and pedestrian issues tend to motivate people to get involved in a way that just general transportation doesn't. Maybe Tristan, you just sort of table the discussion for now and sort of see. I think Autumn's onto something. It would be helpful to actually sort of draft who would be on it, what it's trying to accomplish, purpose and goals. I think that might help people support it or not.
Lucy, you had your hand raised a moment ago. Do you still want to say something?
No, ET said it.
Okay. Jessica?
I was just gonna say, like, we've been thinking, a lot more about how we do committees and the time that's invested and trying to be really conscious of like what the purpose is. And instead of just having a committee to have it as like an open forum, like really being intentional about what are we asking for Like instead of having a bike ped committee so that people can come and tell us about what their issues are, like going to them with a request, like give us feedback on this. Tell us what do you think about this policy? Give us feedback on this traffic calming policy, or be part of this steering committee for this project. Because what ends up happening when you just have a general advisory committee a lot of times is that you just get a lot of general complaints. You get a lot of like, we want you to work on 1,400 different things. And so you just sort of like end up chasing your tail a lot. So I just think be cautious about it, be really intentional about what you want instead of just setting something up for the sake of saying that you have it. And having some really clear objectives and goals. That's just my advice. Otherwise, you might end up having a lot of time wasted.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Well, thank you all for your feedback. With that, we'll kick it off to regular updates. And Doug, Division 13.
Division 13 construction updates with the weather that we've had. Obviously not as much construction going on as other times of the year, but on I-26, an update out there, they still plan to switch traffic early March, putting the eastbound lanes to the new eastbound alignment from mile marker 33 to 37. That'll be in a two-lane configuration to allow median and ramp work to continue. Currently, we're having lane closures daily on the parkway, near the Parkway Bridge, to allow them to complete grading operations in that area. Haywood Road, the contractor mobilized the end of last month, and last Monday, they've started daytime operations, and then at some point they'll be switching to nighttime operations to minimize impacts to pedestrians and vehicular traffic. With the 2513 AA and AB, they're in phase 2 construction with lanes narrowed in each direction. Ramp construction at 44A is ongoing. The bridge substructure is nearing completion, and they're working on sound walls and retaining walls in the area as well. Of course, our resurfacing operations, due to seasonal limitations, are not going on predominantly right now, but we'll be starting up probably by our next meeting. And then with our project development updates, that list is largely unchanged since our last meeting. But if anybody has any questions on any construction projects or projects in development, I'm glad to take those now.
Thank you. Any questions for Doug?
Hey, I have one. The sidewalk project on Riceville Road and there around the VA and Swannanoa and US 70, what's happening with that?
That is in project development currently. I don't know specific dates.
I don't have a let date, but I can follow up with you, on that, but it's moving forward.
There was an alternative chosen a year or two ago.
Yeah.
On how to incorporate the sidewalks.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what stage of design it's at. But
okay. Thanks, Brendan.
Brandon, I can probably answer the let date, or at least what's currently showing. Currently, we're showing November of 26 as far as let. So,
okay. Any further questions for Doug? All right. Steve, you're up.
All right. Haywood County, bridges and more bridges. I know if you travel that, you're aware of what's going on, but really be aware, look at your phone to see if there's alternate routes. Frequently, there's lane closures that aren't announced. And significant delays there, so just be aware of that. The Coosa Trail in Henderson County, we still don't have a let date for that. That's trying to be determined. So I'll get you that just as soon as I know. The Highland Lake Road project, that completion date was moved out a couple of months from what we saw last month. We anticipated that, but it's close to being finished. The very last row there on Haywood County, that's the I-40 project, just because Daniel mentioned it earlier. That isn't supposed to be finished until the end of 2027. So, and project development, the same projects that you've been seeing for a while, since we obviously haven't had any additions to that. So we won't get into that very heavily unless somebody has questions. Nothing's been added on the project development sheet since last month. Otherwise, that's it for Division 14.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. With that, we'll kick it off to Daniel and TPD.
Okay, 3 short updates for me. In January, the NC Rail Division released an economic study of what expanding the North Carolina Railroad corridor to Asheville would. Excuse me. They released their economic impact report about what that project would bring, and I don't put much weight to job creation and spending during construction, because those money can always be spent somewhere else. But the ongoing benefits, long-term support for jobs and earnings, came out to be around 300 sustained jobs, 20 million in annual employee earnings, 60 million in economic output, and about 1.8 million in recurring state and local revenues. So this is just another feather in the hat as we go through studying these corridors. I haven't had a time to read the entire report. I'll put that on my agenda for tomorrow. And maybe I'll find some other diamonds to bring out and talk about. Second update, the state has decided to shift its EV infrastructure plan, charging stations. We're hoping the shift will allow us to build out electrical vehicle charging stations in more places where they are needed. And we're going to scale back the number of EV charging stations that were originally committed to be built along interstates and highways. This follows new federal guidance issued in August that gives states more flexibility to determine where EV stations are. And the old guidance mandated 50-mile separations between chargers. No more than 50 miles separation between chargers. And I know Wyoming complained because they literally have interstate exits more than 50 miles apart. And so they couldn't be in compliance. The new guidance will also allow states to consider where existing privately developed EV stations are as part of the entire corridor, to ensure that NEVI-funded projects will not be in direct competition in the existing privately developed infrastructure. Since the NEVI program began, several private firms built and are now operating charging stations in areas of alternative fuel corridors originally identified by the state. And some of those companies are also interested in applying for NEVI funds. So as a result, we're relocating about 41 or adding about 41 additional locations to the 16 locations that we already have planned. And we've published an updated map on our website. Putting future resources along alternative fuel corridors would allow us to direct more resources to upcoming infrastructure areas such as rural towns and even highways such as Interstate 26 in the mountains where there are currently few chargers. And there is going to be a 45-day window to respond to the shift in plans through late March. So I know we've talked many times about the lack of alternative fuel corridors in Western North Carolina. So this is just another update on our attempts to change and adjust those. Third and final update. Was there a comment?
Just a note on that, for folks who aren't aware, the MPO board did pass a resolution requesting that NCDOT add US 2374 to their alternative fuel corridors to make that corridor eligible for recurring NEVI funds, as that connects to Georgia's alternative fuel corridor. And as of right now, there are no alternative fuel corridors west of Waynesville.
All right.
Thank you, Tristan. Third update is kind of bigger than the state. It's a part of the Eastern Transportation Coalition, which is pretty much all the Atlantic coast states from Florida to Maine, has put out a bulletin that they are looking for volunteers to participate in their mile-based user fee pilot program. And this is not a taxed program because this is not a state and they are not collecting taxes, but they are testing in 20 states how such a system may work. And they're asking people to volunteer to track their miles through various different means so that they can test what people find cumbersome, how accurate some of the systems are, from using third-party plugin devices to telemetrics to just manual readings off the odometer. And they're just looking for people to participate for a month in, I think, March. And so if you're interested in signing up, we can get you a email link to their program page. And so those are the things that have crossed my desk this month.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Kick it off to staff to round us out.
Okay. Really quick on, for subcommittees and work groups, that information is in your packet. The prioritization subcommittee is looking at the P8 methodology. So just to note, that'll come back as a agenda item for next month. One of the big things being looked at is adding information from the region safety plan to our local input point methodology. That recommendation has been made by the prioritization subcommittee for highway projects. It has not totally been nailed down on the bicycle and pedestrian side, so we are hoping to finalize that next month, as it's due next month. So just to note on that, with legislative items, earlier this week, the Basics Act was introduced into the U.S. House. That is, there's always a clever acronym, Bridges and Safe Infrastructure for Community Success. That was introduced by a Republican and a Democrat in the U.S. House. It's a bill supported by the Association of MPOs, the League of Cities, and a number of other organizations that have some focus on transportation. As its name suggests, there's a big focus on bridge maintenance and replacement, road safety, also support for NPOs and RPOs, and an emphasis on delivering projects more quickly. So it was introduced into the House. FYI, from the little bit of my understanding, there's likely to be a whole lot of more bills introduced as the bipartisan infrastructure law expires later this year. So this is likely one of several that will be introduced and considered. Some other updates. Ada, with our Safe Routes to School program, held a walk to school event at Fisk Elementary in Brevard yesterday. Winter Bike to Work Day, being led by Sandy with our TDM program, is tomorrow. So there'll be stations around Asheville for cyclists willing to brave the cold. How the Sausage Gets Funded webinar, that is next Tuesday for anyone interested in general NCDOT funding and prioritization. That webinar is for you. We have set it up as a lunch and learn, so grab a sandwich, get in front of a Zoom webinar. Yesterday, you should have received notice from the WNC Rail Committee about a conference they've put together on March 18th to help promote the Asheville to Salisbury passenger rail project. Just to note, that project is currently in the Corridor ID program, but there's no implementation funds attached. This NPO did submit that project to the state, requesting over $160 million to go towards implementation. So that'll be something we discuss with regional impact. The FBRMPO committee is coming up May 6th through 8th. That is being hosted by us in Asheville. So we hope to see some friendly faces. Strive Not to Drive, another TDM initiative that is also coming up May 15th through the 22nd. I think a number of TCC members are a part of that effort. If you're interested in joining, please get in touch with Sandy. Also of note, our regional ITS plan is getting underway. That's the Intelligent Transportation Systems. So just to note, that was a plan that Federal Highways requested that we undertake for the region. In our last meeting, we noted an upcoming Buncombe County Head Plan public meeting that was postponed due to weather and should be rescheduled shortly.
Neither the weather nor the meeting happened. Oh, well.
But that's all we've got.
Two quick questions on that. I forget the second one. You did send the funding meeting to the board as well. Is that correct?
Correct. That request was made by the board as part of the I-40 toll discussion. There's a number of new board members, and part of the discussion that came up was how folks would rather have funding focused on routes like NC 251, and we briefly touched on the fact that projects on US and NC routes don't usually compete with interstate projects, but just providing more of that background before we really get into local input points is something we do in general every prioritization cycle.
Thank you. Okay. If there are any questions for staff, announcements, news, special updates. Great. Topics for next meeting.
We'll be talking about the PA local input point methodology, and we'll be finalizing our unified planning work program.
Right. Is there any public comment at this time? Hearing none, we're done. Thank you, everybody. See you next month.